Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about MiSide. Now, it's a game that honestly blew me away, completely surprised me with how good this game was. And it's not usually a game I would go for. I'm not real big on horror games. I mean, I play Phasmophobia some, but I can't even play that game by myself. I have to be with someone else. If I try to play it by myself, I might get one or two rounds in, and that's it. I can't do anymore. But I have to admit, this game was just it was great. It blew me away. What can I say? That's the only description at this point in time that I can really use to describe this game. I just finished streaming the game. It was roughly about 4.5 hours. Might not be quite as long if you kind of streamline through it. Maybe it could be longer. I got 10 of 26 achievements, so there seems to be a lot more to this game than I actually discovered with my first playthrough. But I saw this video by Preach, and I wanted to go through this video now, react to it now that I've actually played the game. So let's go ahead and see what Preach has to say, because this is not a game I would have expected him to play either.
I'm going to start 2025 by covering a game that I don't think any of you would have expected me to ever play because of obvious reasons, especially if you know my feelings on anime and little girls. I find it very uncomfortable. I don't like it. I don't like the obsession with the little girls. And every single day, pretty much, of my existence.
He seems to be one of these people that automatically ties real life girls to anime girls, and it is what it is. I'm not going to get into it with this video. I disagree with that whole point of view, but to each their own.
Someone from my community sends me a gift game on Steam to annoy me. Something like Ratcatcher or Rat Smasher or some like look after your waifu game, all this kind of stuff. And also at the back of the meme, there are a bunch of people who really think that if I watch this next anime, that will get me hooked, that will get me in. And I've tried several of them over the years. It's not for me. So how did we end up playing MiSide? So when I started into 2025, we were coming into New Year's Eve, and frankly, I didn't have time to jump into a massive project like we're going to be starting in the new year.
Yeah.
So I was like, we can play anything we want. Let's do like what we call a one-day banger. And I'm looking through, and everyone's like, you should play MiSide. And I'm like, you're memeing on me, right? Everyone's joking at me, and I'm like, no, you're really going to like it. Like, I'm looking at it, and what I saw that tipped me a little bit was that the description of the game, despite its cutesy little like classic sort of like the anime video game thumbnail, was that it was psychological horror. And I was like, it's a horror game?
Yeah, it was, and that kind of surprised me as well.
Like, yeah, it's a horror game. You should try this thing out. And we have had experience in the past with like the Doki Doki horror game I actually really enjoyed, because despite its veneer, it's got this like depth to it that actually made it very fun and very interesting. And I'm really happy to say MiSide has that in spades, in a way that is almost unfair that it's created by like two Russians who just have
Two people created this game. This game is a terrific game, and I would love to see awards for this game. It needs to be put up for some level of awards. Obviously not Game of the Year, but there needs to be awards that this game wins, because this game was terrific.
had fun with this idea and almost like turned the whole obsession with the anime girl on its head.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to spoil
exactly.
too much. Like usually on TDP, I do a bit of a play-by-play of a journey through it. But I think because of the level of like interaction you have here, it's worth going into like the thoughts on the game and then not spoiling it for you, because this is a game that you kind of should play. Not just because you might be into this genre in itself, but because like me, you might be averse to trying this game out just because of how it looks, right?
Well, for me, this is not a genre I usually will gravitate to. This is a game that I usually would not play. But the anime aspect of it kind of pulled me towards it. I wanted to see what it was like. And I had heard and seen that this appeared to be a really good game. That's why I gave it a shot. Word of mouth and the anime character design kind of drew me into it, because she's cute. I like cute anime designs. So
the face of it. What is the game? It plays with the idea of something that is becoming quite rampant across the world, especially like as the popularity of VTubers and things like that has skyrocketed in the last couple of years. It is the current big going trend. And as I record this, like an AI VTuber just broke the Twitch sub record by a long way that's ever been set. It was crazy. It plays with the idea of
AI VTuber. So AI is going to take the streaming jobs now. What are all these people going to do? They got no other. Well, Preach might. He's more of an adult in a generation where he's probably got more skill sets he potentially could fall back on. But some of them, I don't think they have. They haven't developed any other skill set. So what are they going to do if AI takes their job? Okay, the irony here is a little funny for me.
People getting apps, like potentially lonely guys getting apps where they have a virtual girlfriend.
Yeah.
And your job with this app, or the game of the app, is to just provide for this.
His name was Senior Daddy? Are you serious? I hope that's from his chat. I hope that's from his chat, because if that's from him, then we're going to have a discussion about your so-called dislike for anime and young anime girls. I called that into a little suspect there.
Animated character. The animated character needs food, needs groceries. You will work to provide the money in order to buy her groceries, and then you will cook her meals for her, and all the time she's telling you how much she loves you and blah 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 and all this kind of stuff, and you decorate her house and things like this. So it's got this sort of like Animal Crossing vibe to it, but that lasts in this game no more than like 5 minutes, before it just goes completely off the rails and is something entirely different. And the very premise of it is you are dragged into the game by Mita. Mita is the AI character, and Mita wants to spend time with you. She wants to meet you in real life, which at the beginning of the game, you're like, yeah, okay, this is kind of like the thread that tugs on these people in order to get them like invested into this character. But no, Mita literally transports you into her world. And you are now there, and she is there, and she wants you to stay. She doesn't want you to leave, because you're like, whoa. Hold on a minute. I'm in a game. I need to get the hell out of here, right? Like, reality very quickly sets in on you as the player and the player of the game. And one thing I very much enjoyed about this is
I feel like I missed out on playing this game in Christmas. Look at all the Christmas decorations. This would have been cool. That kind of sucks. I didn't have Christmas decorations.
Most part, this does sort of take a back seat because it would spoil the game. Is the overarching mission is, of course, to get out of the game, yet the player does accept certain. There's almost a conflict that, like, the player really does actually like Mita, like, wants Mita, but there's a forgiveness going on that maybe you in the real world would be like, no, just get me the hell out of here. I'm gonna burn this place to the world.
If I could go into a game and come out of the game at will, yeah, that'd be great. I'd love it. I welcome it. But I have a family, so if I were transported into a game against my will, yeah, there's nothing that I'd be like, get me the fuck out. I can't be here. So
I burn this place to the ground in order to get away from it. But what develops from there, and that's why I think it's worth this thoughts video, is an extremely well-crafted video game.
Yeah, it was.
It's reminiscent of things like Superliminal, if you played that, with a lot of messing around with perspective, because you are in a video game virtual world, and that world, interestingly enough, has to obey certain rules.
They did a good job in this game of twisting the environment, using the environment, and not necessarily taking something like Phasmophobia does, which is it's all scary ghost stuff. There's other things, it's psychological, that they use in this game to get you on edge. It's not just full of a bunch of jump scares. I mean, this game was, as he said, very well crafted.
And those rules are based off the idea of game development. And so you can almost feel the people who made it, like, it's important that you understand how the game development process works in order to understand how you're transitioning and moving between these different areas, and the concept that every single person who has downloaded our app has a different meta because that meta is like worked
Different
with
world.
their player in order to become who they are. So there's lots and lots, like almost an infinite number of metas. And what's more interesting than that from the game development standpoint is there are different versions of the app depending on when they updated it from its alpha and beta versions of the app.
Yeah, so initially the player thinks there's only like 19 versions of Meta. And one of the metas has to explain to them, no, there's 19 versions of the game. But each player downloads the app, creates their own little world, creates their own individual meta. And she's like, there's hundreds, thousands, millions of these. They're unlimited. So while there's versions that are only like 19, there's millions of metas. It's just each version is going to have thousands, if not millions, of worlds, and each world has its own meta. It was crazy. With good explanation in the game.
App and the original meta to what maybe even was the original concept of the game, which then had to morph with the times because their original concept was kind of outdated, right? They might have had this like Ace Attorney idea of what this game was going to be. And we've seen this a million times. You've seen it with some of like your favorite apps in the world, right? Like Instagram, for example, was originally like a location check-in app. And that's what its goal was. That's what its vision was. And then it morphed and it changed and it turned into what we know as Instagram today. As games go through this as well, it's like the original concept art and vision is like, okay, we're going to make this sort of like 2D scrolling text adventure game. And it's like, well, they're kind of not doing well in the market these days. So maybe we need to make it 3D. Maybe we do need to look at like what Animal Crossing is doing. And
they had a 2D version with 3D scrolling text in this game as a short little, I guess, section of the world, and I hated it. I'm like, bring me back the voiceover. I want the look. I didn't mind the 2D portion. I hated that it was all scrolling text, and I had to read everything. I didn't like that. I wanted the voiceover, which, by the way, was phenomenal in this game.
And games like that, and bring that in. And therefore, the game has developed over these periods of time into what it eventually became with the latest version, which is what you're playing because you've only just downloaded it. But these other versions still exist. There are people who haven't updated the app. Within the code itself, the original stuff, the original assets, the original pieces of the puzzle are still lurking somewhere beneath the current version of the code. And you have to move between those in order to do it. So you get this entire universe. And it displays it in a very understandable, digestible way. And I thought this was really cool, like reshaping her apartment. You become very familiar with Mita's apartment because you're solving
You're in it
quite
all the time.
rudimentary puzzles, find certain things. But the puzzle solving itself is drawn, and there are... I can't even tell you how many mini games are in here, which are drawn from lots of very popular games. It's very tongue-in-cheek.
There was like a Doom shooter type level, which was freaking crazy. Awesome. I was really surprised to see that. I loved it. It was very simple, but it was fun. It was really cool. All the mini games in this game were terrific.
You can almost feel like this is a parody of like how easy it is to make a lot of the mobile games that exist these days. And the devs are almost like poking fun at that. It's like, yeah, like it's weird that say Angry Birds is ridiculously popular or was such a phenomenal runaway financial success because people were making Angry Birds and remaking that game in about 10 minutes. And they throw in a bunch of games, sometimes to solve a puzzle, sometimes just for fun. Like you might walk into a room that has an arcade machine and it's like, hey, here's another game that's for toilet gaming.
In fact, Mita scolded me one time for playing a game. She's like, we're in a hurry and you stop to play games? Get over here. So it's, they're all over the place. It's fun.
Right? Where you're playing for like 5 or 6 minutes. This is actually a really fun experience.
Yes.
But you would never play this long term. But for the mobile game world, this totally works. And people would probably buy MTX, right? If you could see with a slightly flashier assets pack, this being Jetpack Joyride or Endless Runner or things like that. And they just throw them in as mini games because like this stuff isn't hard to make. This whole overarching idea of like utilizing all these elements, it almost gives me a Resident Evil Village vibe. If you remember Resident Evil Village,
never played it.
Resident Evil Village is a really good game, but the way they made that is also kind of tongue-in-cheek, is that they just divided these antagonists into like 5 antagonists, I think it was the correct number, And each one of them has their own section of the game, which is very simply portioned out. You've got a town, and then you've got sort of a path that leads off to each of the antagonists' area.
He's doing the exact same thing I did. Just stick low and punch. Low kick, low kick, low kick, over and over. Well, it's punch in this case, but it reminded me of the fighting games, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, where you just duck down, you crouch, and you just low kick, low kick, low kick. He's doing the exact same thing I did. I thought that was funny.
And each of those areas is simply a different genre of horror game. They're all in the horror sphere, but the way it plays out, you've got the haunted house, now you've got the more actiony one, and they're all just like, oh, I've played this game before. Like, if I go over here, it's Silent Hill. But if I go over here, it's like Resident Evil. If I go over here, it's like Phasmophobia. And it's all like, just, yeah, we'll just make that game
he lost
the game,
twice to
and
her.
Therefore we can't really go wrong. It's got that like broader...
Sorry, I'm not even listening to what he's saying. I'm watching his battles. Sorry, I'll focus on what he's saying.
Appeal to it is because you'll definitely, if you like horror, you're definitely going to love one of these sections. You might like one less, but like you'll love this one
lose
because
again.
that probably reminds you very heavily, and it's done extremely well in a AAA fashion, of your favorite genre of horror game, and we'll do it even better, right? We'll have the jump scare area, we'll do all those kind of things. And that's what this reminded me of while I was playing it.
Preach, you better not lose. Come on, don't be a loser. Don't be a loser here.
And very quickly, I lost.
He did. He's a loser. Oh, you got beat by a girl. Come on, preach. What are you doing?
I lost that cloud that goes over me of like, oh, it's a silly anime. Let's try and look up her skirt type game, which is still there.
I did that. You can still do that in the game. She scolds you for it, but you can still do it. There's nothing wrong with that. Come on.
I do want to point that out. It's like, it's very rare, but they still do it because they ultimately fall back to remind you. And this is what I thought was so clever about the pacing of this game. It's going to take you maybe like 6 hours on one playthrough, but there's a ton of playthroughs to be had here with this game. Is that they still fall back on like, yeah, but this is probably why you picked the game.
That's what I'm curious about. They do realize, and that's the point he's just touching on, that they understand that you pick this game. What got your attention to begin with, and this is what happened with me, is the character design, the anime girl character design. That's what got your attention. So they understand that, and that's what he's talking about. They kind of give that to you. But he mentioned there's multiple playthroughs. That's what I wondered about. If there's different ways to go about doing this game and potentially getting a different ending, because I got turned into a cartridge at the end. But I wonder if there's a way to avoid that happening and actually having like a happy ending in the game, and not really feeling like you lost, because I only got 10 of 26 achievements. I feel like there's a decent amount more left in this game to find.
Up. And if you're like me, you like looked away. Like, this is not why I'm here at this point. I'm actually into different things. And it definitely moves through so many different environments that are just very well crafted video game stuff and doesn't leave you behind.
He tied with her too?
When you start getting very...
Really? Preach. Are you bad at video games? How did you tie here? I mean, I easily beat this chick.
Very meta, which this is. It like breaks through a lot of the fourth wall heavily, is that you could be like too over the top meta. It's like, oh, okay, that's kind of funny. Like, there's some very obvious ones like RTX on. At some point, like, they activated reflections within the app, and it's RTX on. That's what it is. And everyone's like, oh, RTX on. But it's a throwaway joke, which still leads you to very weird things, while simultaneously keeping you on your toes. For the horror aspect of it, I was made very uneasy by Mita and the different versions of Mita. I think they did this all the way until the very end of the game, where there are things that are going on that are not pushed in your face. You have to notice them, but they're done in a way that you probably will. And when you notice it, you're like, oh God, like, this is very creepy. Very, very creepy. And they do not keep it at all within the initial presentation of the game. From the very bright, cutesy 10-15 minutes, they play with that idea a lot to move it back. And they do draw on a lot of other elements. Like, it's all those little elements, like they come from like PT and things like that, which some of you will know, but put it in their own way where you're like, I get what we're doing here, but now we're going to do it in a different way, which is the great way of iteration, right? Iteration is the spice of life. It's like, I like what you did there, but imagine if it worked like this, and then it can get real weird, right?
What is with the hat? Is that an option in the game? I didn't know you could wear hats. Or is was this just put on him because it's a Christmas time? He looks like a little elf. That's funny.
One better than the other? That's hard to say. That's in the hands of the player. But we're going to have a go, and we're going to do it in a way so that very quickly, if you're a horror player, you'll be like, oh, I get what we're doing,
yeah,
very quickly. And then you're like, oh, but actually it's not quite what we're doing.
The way they handled the horror in this game was terrific.
It's close, but it's not quite what we're doing. Is this like PT or is it like Station 8? What are we doing here? And then it morphs into its own new thing and then turns the creepiness level up. So I think it was well worth making. I recommend this game, and it's weird for me to say at the start of 2025, it's like the first game I'm recommending to you guys. I would give this like a high A in my rankings of a game worth playing. MiSide. It's very cheap. It's available on Steam. And yeah,
I would even put it in S tier on his rankings purely because of how short it is. That the game itself is good. Yeah, the game A rating all across the board. But the fact that you can sit down and play this in one day, automatic S tier at that point. I think that makes this game terrific. Now, Mouthwashing is another game I thought about looking into. I've heard about it. I just don't know. We'll see.
Pleasantly surprised by what I got here from the initial aversion due to the young girl anime style, where I'm like, ugh, I just don't like it in any way. And then it was like, oh, actually, like, put that to the side because it's going to get very, very weird. So I'm sorry. It's just those people who are like, what happened? Because on a personal note, while I was playing this, which was only for one day, having people come in sort of like 2 hours after we'd started and like, what happened? How is Mike playing an anime game? Because that is that is the thin veneer that this game presents itself as. And to then have everybody go, oh, okay, right, yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
I see it. And then be very into it by the end of the day. I don't think you can give a higher praise to that when there are so many people who join me and my mindset of like, yeah, I'm not into that stuff, and they see it very quickly and they're like, nah, I don't know what's going on here. Is this like a bet, or is it a sub goal or something? And then like only within a few minutes being like, oh, okay. Oh, weird. So if you're looking for a little bit of something to spice up your horror life, this is by no means a new game. But if you've seen the thumbnail and gone, yeah, I get it. Okay, she's probably going to be a ghost or blah, 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 which is what I thought. Oh, it's going to be like a bunch of outfit changes, which again are in the game, but absolutely not relevant to what's going on. MiSide, check it.
Outfit changes. Outfit changes are in a... I need to look into that. I really do. Because I didn't realize there were outfit changes in the game. I know they have hairstyles. Like usually you can tell who's who by different hairstyles, but there generally wasn't any outfit changes. So I'm gonna have to see.
Check it out. I think it's a solid game. Well played. A high A from me. Not quite S tier, but very high A.
Yeah. I mean, great game. I think Preach is right on most of his points, except for his dislike for anime and anime girls. But you know, not everybody can be perfect, right? So hey, go get this game. I think it's great. I think you guys should play the game. It's a short game. I finished it in 4.5 hours. There's probably other things I didn't do. I'm gonna have to watch Preach's playthrough to see if he did something different than I did. Maybe I can learn a little bit. But you guys should go get this game. It is top notch. I loved it. Go check it out. Go support this small indie developer. It's much better than what you would get with some of this AAA slop nowadays. So if you liked the video, hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more content, and I'll talk to you guys next time.